Okay,
The show is yours.
thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. This is Tips and Tricks, EPE Distance Education, and we'll be viewing that via the lens of full remote ESL. We are from the Monroe to BOCES Center for Workforce Development in Spencerport, New York, which is near Rochester, New York. All right. So we'd like to introduce ourselves. My name is Nicole Pearsall. I'm the ESL Program Coordinator here at CWD, and I'd like to give you a fun fact about myself. My favorite remote location is Acadia National Park in Maine.
I'm Melissa Lasher. I am an adult ESL instructor here at Monroe to BOCES, and I also teach the distance ed classes. And my favorite remote location is Zion National Park in Utah.
We love national parks. But now we'd like to hear from all of you. So let's get to know one another. Could you please type your numbered answers in the chat for the following: your name, your job title and organization, and your favorite remote location. All right, Karia. Okay. Ooh, we got a couple of cool remote locations being mentioned. Salt Lake City, South Carolina, the Adirondacks. Very cool. Thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourselves. And I know that a bunch of you introduced yourselves in the chat earlier, so we'll, oh, hi Martha.
Chili Finger Lakes.
Chili Finger Lakes.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for sharing some of your fun facts about your favorite remote location. We're going to move on to the next slide now. So we'd also like to know your distance ed connection. Does your school currently run HSE or ESL distance education programming? If so, what is your connection to the programming, and what do you hope to gain from this Lunch and Learn? If you'd like to type your answers into the chat, feel free, but no pressure. New to the program, okay. How to improve measurable skill gains and outcomes, We will touch a little bit on that. I'm going to give everybody a couple more seconds to answer if they want to, and then we can move on. New to fully remote, HSC, some techniques to keep students engaged and gaining. All right, that sounds good. All right, thank you all for your input in the chat. All right, just a little PSA, we will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll do our best to respond to them. And as you can see, we're trying to make this a little interactive, so we appreciate your participation. All right. So right here we have an EPE distance education sort of overview and a few terms for our glossary. Please take a moment to look over this slide and let me know if you have any questions about this. You can either type that question into the chat if you have one, or you can unmute yourself and ask.
If you have any questions, just feel free to unmute and go ahead.
Yep. So this year, we were only allowed to serve via distance education for ESL, NRS, I believe it's 3 and up, but for next year, the state is allowing all NRS levels to take part in distance education, remote distance education. So that's one thing to note. Okay, it seems like everybody feels pretty good about the overview and the glossary of terms. If you decide later on that you want more clarification, please type it in the chat. All right, so we're going to start with a program overview. So this is the way we began our distance education programming here at CWD. Last year, the OG program that we created was hybrid because that's what the state allowed. So we had synchronous tutoring online via Microsoft Teams with 25% in-person offered. And then we had fully digital classwork and homework packets via a Microsoft Teams classroom in conjunction with emailing. Currently, we run a full remote ESL distance education program because we took part in the pilot, the full remote pilot. So everything is online and fully digital via Burlington English. In Burlington English, we have an embedded Microsoft Teams link for the synchronous tutoring class. And our homework packets are delivered primarily through Burlington English's messaging feature. But if there are any PDFs that need to be included, for example, some of the state documentation, those would be delivered via email. Let's see, I see there's a question in the chat. Is that all NRS levels for both ESL and GED? I'm not totally sure about the GED levels. That might be NRS 2 and above. So I would have to look into that and get back to you. But for ESL, definitely NRS 1 and up. I believe there was a memo about the new remote distance education policies and procedures that went out not long ago that does detail that. All right, creating the course. So of course, as mandated by the state, any staff that are involved in our EPE distance education courses are trained via the RAIN in the EPE distance education professional development. And the course was built via collaboration between the program coordinator, the distance education instructor, and a tech specialist. Now, funny story, when we first built this course, all 3 of those people were me. But as time went on, we were able to bring in a new instructor and tech specialist to help us with any things that we ran into in terms of challenges. And then this past year, we upgraded our course with the addition of Burlington English, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but it certainly helped with streamlining planning and packet creation. And I see in the chat that somebody says they believe it does cover all levels of HSC as well next year. So that sounds like some good news. Okay. So training instructors. The program coordinator and instructional coach has distance education training and related teaching experience, which is helpful when you're trying to assist instructors with what they're working on when you have that real life experience with it. And new instructors are trained into our now pre-existing system via the following as needed, of course. RAIN EPE distance ed training, which is mandatory, shadowing, co-planning and teaching, then observed lead teaching, and then solo lead teaching. So it's a sort of scaffolded model of training for the instructors that we onboard. All right, supporting instructors. The program coordinator and instructional coach has an open door policy for any of the following: curriculum development and lesson planning assistance, brainstorming, questions that may come up regarding instruction, policy, anything of that nature, troubleshooting, requesting observations and getting feedback, And the program manager provides monthly one-to-one meetings with our instructors and staff and annual performance observations and review.
2:00.
Can I please remind any newcomers to mute yourselves unless we ask for any feedback? Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to stop here for a moment just to see if anybody has any questions about what we've gone over so far. You can type it in the chat or you can unmute yourself if you have any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
So this is specifically related to EPE funding, right?
Yes.
Does everyone that's in the meeting receives EPE funding?
I mean, potentially, yes, but I couldn't speak for all of them. They might receive like ALE or WEP funding and not EPE funding. It really depends on their program and the funding sources that they use. But we as an institution use EPE, primarily EPE and WIOA funding.
Yeah. So I was just curious, how would that be if everyone, yes, some people who receive ALE is interesting. Yep.
Okay, yeah, so like the general ideas about running, distance education, especially full remote distance education, maybe there are still some applicable ideas for those that use ALE. Melody. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to the next slide then. All right, so if you're an instructor, how does your program help you feel supported? You can raise your hand and unmute to answer, or you can type it in the chat if that's something that you're more comfortable with. Do we have any instructors in the audience? Instructors often share resources that they use and we chat about what works for us. That's amazing. So you have like colleagues that you can turn to share ideas. Amazing. We also have that here at Center for Workforce Development. Not an instructor, but we conduct community of practice every other week to share ideas. Awesome that you have scheduled time dedicated to that sort of sharing. Okay, thank you for your input. All right, now we're gonna get to the part about students. So when we have students that are interested in our remote distance education, we have a screening process and an onboarding process, which I'll go over. So for screening students, this year, we decided to only do intermediate and above students for our distance ed. And so at this point, they must have tested at the Best Plus 2.0 NRS level 4 and up, or into Best Literacy 1.0, but that obviously will change next year when we add a beginner course that has NRS 1 and up. We ask that students have access to a computer. It could be a personal computer, it could be at their local library, but some of the things that we require students to do requires more than just a smartphone or a tablet. If students don't have access to a personal or a local library computer, we do have some partners that provide laptops. And we use the AEPP screening tool for in-depth discussion. So this is something I can share, but also if we make this PowerPoint available, you can click on this and see for yourself. I'm gonna click on that. This is our Finger Lakes RAIN and where they have all of our documentation. And let's see, here's the screening tool. Let's see, is this? Yeah, it's this one. And we have the students go through this and answer the questions as honestly as possible. but we don't really use the rubric to grade it that they provide because we feel that many of the questions need deeper discussion to fully understand the student and whether or not they actually have a barrier to attending and being successful. So we end up using it as a discussion tool. I can't scroll down for some reason, my mouse is not working. So this is fun. Please give us one moment. We're having a smidge of technical difficulty.
It should.
Hmm?
Should.
Can you do that? Thank you for your patience. We can go back to the, can you do that one more time? And let me see the, thank you for your patience. Okay. Okay. I don't know why this is happening. All right, let's see. You said Alt tab. Oh. This is- Okay. Oh no. Okay, I'm not really sure how to move on from this point because we're not able to control the computer. Okay, can you go to the presentation?
Right here.
No.
right?
The presentation itself,
It won't let me go to it. It's
right
only-
there, that one. Yeah, thank you.
Aha, there we go.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, we'll try.
Sorry about that.
So as I was saying, we use that tool more for in-depth discussion. For example, on that screening tool, it might ask the student if they are able to do a function like copy and paste or are able to upload or download documents. And they might say no, but upon further investigation, they might tell me that they have someone in their household who is very good at computers or something of that nature who could help them. And so that barrier isn't a true barrier. And that conversation helps us understand what the student truly is capable of doing in terms of being successful in this course. All right, thank you all for your patience with that one. Hopefully I can move on to the next slide. All right, perfect. All right. Once we determine that a student is eligible, we do the onboarding. This happens during our intake sessions, our enrollment sessions. So once they've done all of our enrollment paperwork to become students at CWD, we add on this additional onboarding session. It could be one-to-one or in small groups, depending on who walks in the door and how many of those individuals are interested in remote distance education and are eligible. We have an agenda that we use. There's a staff version, which is basically a guide that makes sure that the staff that are running the onboarding check all the necessary boxes to make sure that the student is ready to be a distance education student. And there's a student version, which is basically an info sheet that they take home with them, making sure that they have all the necessary information that they need, tips for being successful, how to access their first day of class, etc. We also do an online tour. So we tour Burlington English website. We go over what a packet looks like in there, how to access the online synchronous class, what the documentation looks like for the student time worked record, which is mandatory. Now, we've heard from a lot of different programs. Some programs ask their students to fill out their time worked record, and other programs do it for them after they report how much time they worked on each particular date. If you need to see this documentation, I'm honestly a little afraid to click on the link right now, but when this PowerPoint is made available, you will be able to click on it and see for yourself. It's if you're not familiar, you put the student puts the date that they worked and the amount of time that they worked over the course of a 2-week period that should total 12 hours. They also get a welcome email with their Burlington English account information and first day instructions. All right, let's see. Do we have any questions on the screening and onboarding part of our process? We can also make our agenda and student guide available for viewing.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can.
Okay, great. Because sometimes I have issues with this laptop. I'm not really familiar with Burlington English. I just went on their website and was able to get just a little bit. I've never used it before. If this is not the time, that's okay. I just would like to know a little bit more details about it. I
Sure.
received JOA funding.
Sure. So Burlington English is an online platform with ESL curriculum. Do you want to speak a little bit more about it, Melissa?
Yes, it has multi-levels. So anywhere from core, which is literally learning the alphabet and numbers, up through advanced, and they also have an academic advanced, as well as many modules on civics and grammar. So it really does include pretty much everything you would need for a class, a really nicely well-rounded class. They have listening practice that the students can do on their student lessons, listening and speaking practice. And the speaking practice is pretty amazing. It actually measures how accurately they're saying the sounds in the word.
Yeah, and it focuses on, so you can put the students' primary language in. So it
Yes.
focuses on the sounds that people who speak that language would normally have, which is really interesting as well. And if a student is having trouble understanding the directions in a particular area, you can actually translate the directions to the student's primary language. It also has soft skills for employability and also career training modules on specific industries, which is really interesting, especially if you get WIOA funding and your, part of your curriculum should be employability and industry topics. And it also has really great literature sections for students that are leveled. So you can do in-class reading as well as add reading to packets, homework packets.
And
Is
how
that
would I
a
be
pretty,
able,
go ahead.
okay, how would I be able to take a look at, for example, at a lesson plan or a video? Just I would like to see it, how it works.
Yeah, if you go to burlingtonenglish.com,
Yes.
I believe they have some things like that that you could take a look at.
Like a demo.
Yeah, like a demo.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that
Thank
answered
you.
the question.
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you.
Great. All right.
We can also, if you want to email one of us, I could send you a link to who our contact is if you wanted to speak to somebody about the program also.
Yeah, they'd be a wealth of information for you. All right. Going on to the next slide. That's great. All right, so if your program has a distance education course, even if it's not remote, how does your program onboard students to ensure success? If you'd like to answer, you may raise your hand or unmute to answer, or you can type it in the chat if that's something more comfortable for you. And Melody, thank you for your contact information.
The best ways to contact.
Yeah, we always want to hear from other programs. It's nice for this to be a way to share ideas. So we would love to share with you, obviously, what we do, but we'd like to hear from you if you do anything different that's working for you.
Texting students is a good way to keep in contact with them.
Yeah, definitely. I always find whether it's for just instructional communication or getting follow-up, information and outcomes, students tend to be a lot more comfortable with texting than emailing or calling.
Yes, we've just started using the Remind app, which is used a lot in the lower elementary K-12 world. And that's been super helpful because not only does it allow them to contact me, but they can contact each other.
Mm,
So some of them have become friends and now get together outside of class or can ask each other questions.
yes, definitely. All right. Thank you for your, let's see, Khan Academy has been revamped in the last few years. Oh, that's a great idea, using Khan Academy. We'll have to
Yes.
take a look to see what kind of improvements they've made that could be useful in our remote
Yeah,
sessions. Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
It's a great site.
Yes, yeah. Oh, it's this one now. We have too many.
Here, give me
mice.
that old one, I'll get.
I'll put it over there. Okay. Thank you for your input. All right. I believe, this is Melissa's turn.
Yes, here. We'll switch.
Yeah. Melissa is our main, distance education instructor.
Okay, so now we're gonna talk about long distance rapport and building a community. In my class personally, I run the distance education class pretty similar to the way that I run an in-person class. Obviously, we have to do some workarounds because of the online part of that, but we take 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of every class to introduce each other, to talk about how our week has been, share any activities that we've done, things in the community that we've participated in, for example, like Lilac Festival. I generally send them emails that have links to all kinds of things to do in the community. As those of you know who are in New York, the weather can be really rough, especially in the winter and spring months, and especially for students who are coming from much warmer places. So I give them lots and lots of ideas of things to do to get out of the house, to try something new outside, and things that they could do together if they wanted to meet up outside of class too. That has happened on occasion. And I create a safe environment for them to actually practice and make mistakes, and we kind of all help each other, which really helps build that community feeling in the group. And now we'll take a look at our instructional overview. Excuse me. So right now, all of the students I have in my class are intermediate, or my classes are intermediate plus. The synchronous sessions are, I run them like a regular class, like my in-person classes. So I don't have like tutoring per se, where they come in and help on individual things. I'll prepare lessons based on things that they be struggling with or would like extra practice with. I run my class off of the Burlington English program, and we just stop and work through any questions or issues anyone has as we go. They get packets, homework packets that they can do on their own time. That's 12 hours. We'll talk more in depth about the packets a little bit later in the presentation.
But because everyone is intermediate plus, those packets and the coursework can all have intermediate level commonalities that are applicable to everyone. And that really helps the instructor both target areas of need and streamline instruction and planning.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
And also because they're all more or less the same level, they are working at the same level in Burlington English as well.
Yeah.
So I individualize each packet depending on if students are working towards a goal other than like the general English acquisition. For example, I had one student whose verbal skills are fantastic, but she never learned her alphabet or numbers and doesn't know how to write them. So I sent her modules from Burlington English that were much lower for her to work on those skills. If they have trouble with, another student had trouble with verb tenses, so I sent some modules on verb tenses for them to get extra practice. I also have some that are working on the TABE exam or the GED, so again, they get separate parts of their packet that are focused on their area of need.
And we do have some other supplementary resources that we use, including, for example, if they're working toward their GED, using Essential Ed.
Yes.
For parts of their packets and things of that nature. So it's not just Burlington English. We do have a lot of other supplementary materials that we pull in according to the need.
Yes. Or also anytime it's around a holiday that we have here in the US that may be something new to them, I'll send a PDF or exercise or video via their email, because it cannot be sent through Burlington English. So there may be some supplemental items for their packet that I send via email as well. All right, so establishing class routine. We pretty much do the same thing every week. We have the first 10 to 15 minutes as a welcome. They come in, they share about their week, any questions that they have with anything that they're working on, whether in their packets or something they've run into in their everyday life that they're confused about or would like help with. We do a warm-up exercise to kind of get their brains thinking in English that's usually related to the lesson that we're working on. And then we do a lesson in Burlington English, take a break for 15 minutes and then come back and either do an additional lesson in Burlington. Their lessons tend to be content, then grammar, then content, then grammar. So most every day we're doing part of the class with general English on a
Like force
theme.
skills
Yeah,
or-
exactly. And then the other half is a grammar. If there's an area with grammar that they're really struggling with, I may take that second half of the class to focus a little bit more on that, or any other 4 skills lesson that works with what we're doing.
I'm gonna pause here for just a
Sure.
moment because we have a couple of questions in the chat.
Yep.
Are our remote classes 3 hours long? So yes, they are. And then how many students per class? How many, well,
Well, I have, our class has several sessions that they can go to. So there's an evening time slot that's an hour and a half, 2 days a week. And then a Friday time slot that is in the morning for 3 hours.
it's the same class roster.
Yes,
And they just have 2 tutoring drop-in options.
Yes.
One in the morning and one in the evening, basically. But it's the same content being delivered and it's the same class roster. So if a student who normally comes on Tuesday and Thursday evenings for an hour and a half each cannot make it that week during those times, then they can come to the Friday morning session or vice versa.
and during the week, the student numbers are between 4 and 8. And on Friday, it's closer to 6 to 12.
But there are more on the roster than show
I
up.
think there are
Yeah.
25 or
Yeah.
27 on the roster.
Mhm. All right, did that answer questions? All right, go ahead.
Any other ones? Okay.
No.
All right, so, so this could work for both in-person and remote tutoring. You could also do the class in a room and do the online classroom and have, be in an in-person location if you need to have the in-person.
The
portion.
hybrid.
Yes.
If you're doing hybrid
portion.
instead of full remote, this could
Yes.
still work.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm. No worries.
My words are getting all mixed up today. So anyway, for classroom management, I have 1 monitor that I work with, but 2 would be ideal because it gives you the opportunity to see students coming and going and manage the chat a little more closely. The students prefer that I work on a full screen because they can see it better. I manage the latecomers or the inability to see who's coming and going by just having an overall rule that if you come in or out of the classroom, announce that you're coming in or announce that you're leaving, just so that we know that you're there. I write down students on a list as they come in, and I usually go round robin style. So each person has a turn to read for every example. We read everything that we do. So I have the students reading almost the entire class for practice speaking and reading. I very rarely read to them. I remind them, if you're not speaking, to mute their microphones. That can sometimes be problematic, especially for those who are home with children. Makes it interesting. And for those situations where you have an extremely quiet or shy student, I'll usually call on them first if I'm just calling on somebody to answer. The round robin style of managing the involvement has really helped that a lot. It gives the shy students the opportunity to participate without having to initiate that or be called on. If I have a student who's struggling to answer the question, so maybe we're doing an exercise and there are 10 questions and they don't know the answer, we just say, who can help? You know, this is a tough one. Who can help with this one? And then if I have a dominating student, I have had many dominating students who really would like a one-to-one session, but unfortunately online it doesn't work that way. So we just call on somebody else or say, who else can share? Or again, the round robin style of participating has really worked to manage that as well. Okay. Oh, sorry, like when we did the other day. Okay, so what are some of your classroom management best practices? You can unmute or type it in the chat. What are some things that help you to manage your online classes if you have one now?
We're at 12:40, so we
Okay.
can always
skip some of those.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, nothing?
All right, I'm not seeing anything in the
Alright.
chat, so we're gonna move on.
All right, so here are some instructional examples. So, for example, for writing that we've done, this was super successful. I used a prompt from All Things Grammar, which we have linked in the resources. And I'll just flip over to it. It's easier to talk you through. I don't like this thing.
Yeah, I know. There you go.
Yeah. Sorry.
You bring it
All
back
right.
in.
So what is your favorite holiday? We had done a lesson on Thanksgiving, watched a video, talked about Thanksgiving, and then used the example of Thanksgiving to go through this exercise together and brainstorm and write a paragraph. And then they took this as part of their packet and they could write about their favorite holiday. So we filled in Thanksgiving here. Whoops, that's all right. Of course I have cap flag on. And then allowed them to brainstorm a list of words that reminded them. This is a fillable document that I created ahead of time, so it was really easy to write the words as they spoke them. And then we took some of these words and we took turns writing sentences. So we said, pick a word from up above and write a sentence about it. So we wrote, maybe 6 sentences, and then we went back and reordered the sentences in a way that made more sense. So this really was helpful in fixing grammatical errors, because the sentences they came up with, we would write them as they said them, and then go back and say, is there anything that we could fix about this? What needs to change? How can we change this verb tense? It was really helpful. They really enjoyed it. And then on their own time, enjoyed writing about their own favorite holiday and had another opportunity to write.
And to practice this
Yes.
new skill that they, had just learned together.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Right. And we'll give you some resources, again, on the resource list for other options that you can use for this. Gamesforesl.com has a great 30 writing prompts that you can assign them to do on their own time, and also to just do in class together as a group. Okay, and if you have questions, please feel free to just write them in the chat or unmute and just ask.
Yeah,
as
we have
you're
a few
going.
people saying they're new to it, but they might choose breakout rooms for discussion. If somebody knows that a student is coming regularly, they ask them what topics they'd like to learn about.
Yes.
Or read about. And then some people, one person said they use Padlet. So
that's
there
a
are
great
some
one.
great things in the chat.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. A listening instruction example. I have an example of a dictation that we've done before. So have them number their paper 1 to 10. And then this has a prompt that goes with it that you read the sentences, and then they have to fill in the word that's missing. So I won't give up working on phrasal verbs. Then go back and we take turns reading the sentence the way that it's with the word filled in. And then we correct each other's errors as we go.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Again, this gives them an opportunity to read aloud, to listen, and then to read aloud after they've had their answers, and they all get to take a turn reading. And then for a speaking instruction example, I love Spot the Difference. It gives them a chance to really share their ability to describe. Oh, I did the wrong thing again. Hold on. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll just say, what do you see? There it is. Sorry.
It's okay.
These, I always close mine. Really gives them the opportunity to describe the picture. What do you see? Tell me more about it. I see a family, I see a father, the baby is sitting on the man's lap. So try to give them that skill of really describing and using longer sentences and which you're going to see on the best test. They need to have
Yeah,
the
on the
ability
best
to do that.
plus, this is a best plus skill.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then there's the second one that I usually pull up on a second screen. For the sake of time, I won't do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Won't do that today. But so we have them describe the picture and then pull the second one up side by side and then have them take turns. Tell me one thing that you see that's different from this picture. From picture A and picture B. And it's been really great for vocabulary, for learning things like checkered, like the fabric.
Yeah, new vocab. that they
Right,
wouldn't
ceiling
normally-
fan, someone
Mhm.
didn't know what a ceiling fan was called. So even at a higher level, they're learning a lot of new vocabulary and it's really working on describing around things that they don't know the words for. I think I'm still in tonight. Any questions so far or anything that you use for the listening and the speaking skills that you'd like to share?
Please feel free to share in the chat or unmute yourself.
I love the activity. I mean, I love spot the difference activity, so thank you.
Yeah, they're
Mhm.
fun, and also they do help with building skills to get that measurable skill gain at a certain level.
Yes.
Mhm. All right, moving on.
Oh, well, so what is think about a favorite activity that you do in your classroom, maybe in an in-person classroom, and think about how you can modify it for distance ed synchronous learning. So the previous spot the difference exercise is something that I do in pairs in my in-person classes. One person gets one picture and one gets the other, and they have to describe to each other what their pictures are like so they can find the things that are different. So this was a way that we took something that we use in an in-person classroom and modified it for a distance ed class.
So take a moment, think about a favorite classroom activity of yours and how it could be modified for distance ed synchronous learning. And if you feel that you're interested in doing so, you can type it in the chat. And one thing we are demonstrating throughout all of this is the ability to sit quietly and give participants processing time and answering time, because that's definitely something that you'll be experiencing if you do full remote distance education. You just got to get comfortable with a little bit of silence. I find Common Lit packets are great for both in-person and remote, great for discussion that I can't have in my class that's in the library. Okay. Thank you for sharing that awesome
Yeah.
resource. We will look into it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay,
All right.
now we're gonna look
Oh,
at.
there's one
Oh,
more.
go ahead.
Place students in breakout rooms and small groups and share a Padlet that each group can work on together. Once back in the main room, each group presents or shares out. That sounds great.
That's a great one.
Really good one. Oh, and another one, favorite activity is jigsaws. Give students an opportunity to read, then go into small groups and discuss what they've read and explain their section to each other.
Mhm.
Awesome.
That is great. Right, now we're
Right.
gonna take a look at packets. So right now, our packet assignments are sent via Burlington English. So Burlington English offers 4 skills: vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, civics, and employability skills, as well as culture. And then via their email, I send the EPE distance education documents that are required, and then any non-Burlington English assignments. So any PDFs cannot be sent through Burlington English that isn't actually part of their program. So this gives me the opportunity to send them. For example, we did a warm up on in, at, and on, and they asked if they could have it blank to try it again on their own. So then I could attach that to their next packet for them to practice on their own.
And we also often provide a selection of practice websites to bridge any gap in the 12 hours that the state requires, so we can achieve that perfect 12. So if a student's working on a packet and it only takes them, 10.5 hours to complete the work that's assigned, then they can go to these practice websites and do an additional 1.5 hours and still put 12 hours on their packet.
Here's an example of what their packet looks like in Burlington English. They have links to each part of the module, each lesson in the module. They can just click on the link and it takes them directly to where they need to go. I also add lessons with grammar. And the student lessons can be viewed. I can view their lessons and see how long they've taken and if they've completed them through the Burlington English system.
But if you don't have access to Burlington English, which is a paid curriculum service, you can see what our original packets used to look like before we upgraded to Burlington English. So for a traditional packet before that, we sent assignments and links via email directly to the student along with required paperwork. That included fillable PDFs that they could self-correct and send back. So it took a lot of that extra correcting time away from the instructor and put the responsibility on the learner. And of course, they can always ask questions when they don't understand the correction, but it does save a little bit of time on the instructor end and add to the packet time for the student. And a wide variety of resources can be used for packets. So it doesn't just have to be worksheets or interactive websites or anything of that nature. You can send students out in the community to do a task. For example, you can send students to their local library and ask them to come up with 3 questions to ask their local librarian, and maybe that counts for 30 minutes or an hour of packet time. And in order to prove that they've done so, they can take a picture of something at the library and they can upload that as their proof of having done the homework. Students can also have free choice options. So if you see further down below, it might say, choose your own preposition vocabulary work, and there might be multiple websites there that they can select from to do this work, or choose your own English YouTube video to watch, or choose your own reading activity, right? So you can give students more, kind of like a choice board for which to complete that 12 hours, something that they enjoy doing and makes sense for their goals.
Yeah, that's something we're talking about doing when we have the lower level beginners for distance ed, is creating a choice board with maybe 12 different options, and they can fill those options out and then just mark off the choice board.
Yes.
As a way to simplify the packet documentation that you'll see on the next, on the next slide. You can see the details we left out here just because for the sake of space, but usually there's detailed options here, like, write a sentence or make a list of vocabulary words you learned, some kind of guide for them to make sure they're being thorough in their assignment. Okay. So here's the packet routines. I keep an Excel spreadsheet with the packet due dates auto-populated, so they have 2 weeks to return their packets. 4 weeks they are removed from the program. So we send out emails to track that and remind them when they need to return their packets.
Right, we tell students that we prefer that they work 6 hours a week for 2 weeks and submit those packets every 2 weeks. No more than 2 packets per month though. But we tell students if, they have a very busy life that, it's okay to do 4 hours a week for 3 weeks, but really they shouldn't be submitting packets, taking more than a month to submit a packet. And now we have some resources for you all. So these are some free online presentation tools that can be helpful. Classroom Screen is fun. Classroom Screen is the one that's depicted in the center on the left. Mentimeter is depicted on the bottom on the left. And then graphic organizers from, for example, readwritethink.org are depicted on the upper left. A lot of these we like to use, and we are able to make them fillable via Adobe Pro, but that is not free. So you may or may not want to use something like those graphic organizers, depending on what you have access to.
Yeah,
We're gonna ask that you can answer this question in the chat. What are your favorite online presentation tools? And we will view those those recommendations, but we're gonna go to the next slide just for the sake of time. And go ahead, Melissa.
So here is a list of free online resources that we have, that we use regularly, that are fantastic. Bamboozle is great for reviewing a skill. There's many pre-created games in there that you can use. K5 Learning has great worksheets for grammar. All things websites have great, cover all topics. Breaking News English has great leveled readings, so that you can they automatically will bring it down to lower or higher levels depending on what your students need, and they have questions that go along with those as well.
LO.org is great for listening to single individuals or pairs or groups speaking, and they actually have the benefit of having a variety of English accents for students to listen to, and at a normal pace of speaking. So it's more like what they'll encounter outside of the classroom. So I think that LO.org is a pretty good resource for realistic listening.
And then here are some resources we have with a cost. Burlington English is the program that we use, as well as Essential Ed. Brain Pop is great for, it's geared for younger children, but it's great for especially cultural videos with lots of great facts, like Memorial Day, Labor Day, different holidays.
Climate
like
change.
Climate change.
You know, there's a lot of different things there. And we find that the students don't really mind that it's geared toward, like, for example, middle schoolers, because the language is level appropriate, the topics are interesting, and once they get used to it, it's pretty funny and kind of fun. So
Yes, exactly.
We're asking what your favorite distance ed instructional resources are. You can type them in the chat, but we know that we're coming up on the end here. So we'd also like to say, ask if you have any questions or comments, which you are free to, ask now. You can unmute or type it in the chat. Okay, I see we have a couple. Oh, somebody said this was great. Thank you so much. JSTOR Daily. Oh, I don't know about that. I'm gonna have to look into that. I'll take a note. JSTOR Daily. Oh, and thank you, Melody. All right. Well, if you have a moment, we would appreciate your feedback. Your feedback is welcome. And so you can give us a little feedback on our presentation today to let us know what worked, what could use a little improvement in the future. And we thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Melissa. The recording will be available on the YouTube, and then we will reach out with the PowerPoint presentation so you can have that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for facilitating.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.